Hi, welcome to episode 9. But what about that lamb, though? Talk about Mary's lamb, that little lamb. We haven't talked about it in a while. It is the greatest song in English history. And you remember, we did this thing where, we sang it, and we were like, when I say we, I mean me. Me did this, I did this. Mary had a little lamb. Let's just take that much. And we talked about this in, I think, the very first episode about what's the same and what's different. And I want to specifically talk about the pitch. And we noticed that there was only 3 pitches. Let's rewrite it to show that. So, Mary had a little lamb. This pitch I'm going to color blue. And then let's make this one red. Mary had a little lamb. And let's color this pitch green. Mary had, right? So there's only these 3 different pitches. Me, little, and lamb all are 1 pitch. Let me write those in so you... Mary had a little lamb. And then Mary had a, re and are the same pitch. And then had gets its own special pitch. Mary had a little lamb. Those pitches are what we call a step away. And if we're talking about things being a step away, you gotta think of through what space are you moving a step? And the space is pitch. And the space is also pitch class. These are a step away in pitch and in pitch class. And we call the steps you go through in pitch a scale. And we're going to talk a little bit about it today. But let's start by just giving these some kind of names. Maybe I'll name them from lowest to highest. I'll call this step 1. Mary had, and I'll call this re and note. Step 2, and I'll call me, little, and lamb's note. Step 3. And in fact, that's what we call them. When we put a little hat on them like this, a little carrot looking thing over top, that turns them into scale degrees. And scale degrees are how we talk about steps on a scale. So in this song, we could sing it, Mary had a little lamb, but we could change it to these numbers. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, right? This is actually the actual numbers we would use for this. There's something special about the lowest number, number 1. Number 1 is what we call the tonic. And the tonic in a scale is the central note. It's kind of the gravitational center of the whole key. Everything relates back to it. Most songs end on their tonic, and indeed, if we sing this whole song, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. It ends on tonic. If you tried to imagine it ending somewhere else, it would not feel like it ended. Whose fleece was white as snow. No, you want this note, right? Whose fleece was white as snow. No, you want this note. You want the one. You can't make yourself not want the tonic. It's built into your ear and all your cultural experience. Don't even try. You're crazy if you do. I'm just kidding. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, scale degree 1 is the tonic. I feel like a weird robot singing all these numbers. And let's go back in time and let's talk about how we came up with a better way than numbers. At least I think it's better. I think it's funner. I think it's better, and it's called solfege. And in solfege, we sing scale degrees with these syllables. Scale degree 3 is mi. Scale degree 2 is re. Scale degree 1 is called do. And these give you like something much more pleasant to sing than a number. So we could say, Mary had a little lamb. We could say 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. But that sounds kind of robotic. Or we can use our nice solfege. Mi, re, do, re, mi, mi, mi. I like the solfege the best. Notice all of these are proportional. They don't go with any given pitch. We could be like, Mary had a little lamb, but we could also be like, Mary had a little lamb, or we could be like, Mary had a little lamb. It doesn't matter how high or low the pitch is, it's about the interrelationships of the pitch. When we're talking about a scale, we're talking about a certain relationship of pitch to other pitches. It's a lot like when we talked about duration, and this is one of the things that makes music hard for people to get, especially in today's world. In today's world, so many of the things we learn are based on things and like exact values of things. Like when most people think of math, they think about algebra or calculus or kinds of math where there are exact values that you're talking about. But back in the time when all this music vocab was made up, geometry was the big deal. And in geometry, if you go back to the roots of geometry, you don't even see that many numbers. It's all about proportions. I mean, you don't see exact values. Like, no one is going to tell you the radius of a circle is 2 inches. They're just going to call the radius of the circle x, and then say that the diameter of the circle is 2 times that x times pi, or stuff like that. Sorry to get all geometrical. What I'm saying is, thinking proportionally was a big part of the mindset of the people who made up the terminology we use for music, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing too, because music is at heart a proportional system. And in fact, there's somewhat of an argument about how to use solfege. There's an idea called fixed do and an idea called movable do. When we talk about fixed do, do is always C. The note C. So do is tied to an actual pitch when you use fixed do. I personally think fixed do is stupid. It makes sense if you have perfect pitch. Very few people do. Even then, it doesn't really make sense. There's all kinds of reasons why that we haven't learned enough to talk about. But movable do is where it's at. And in movable do, do always acts the same. Do always feels the same. But do can be literally any pitch in the world that you choose, and then every other note lines up with it. So movable do is the way to go. What we care about in music almost always is relationships and actions. I think I've talked about this a few times, and I'll talk about it a lot more times. Our brains love to latch onto objects and values, but music is not made out of objects or values. Music is made out of relationships and actions. Let's talk about where these weird solfege syllables came from. Let's go back. Let's go back to the 11th century. Sometime in the 1000s, there's this guy named Guido di Arezzo. And Guido di Arezzo didn't write this song that I'm going to talk about, but Guido di Arezzo used this song to teach music. Guido had this whole system of teaching music, and he's who basically invented solfege, and it was based on this chant. We'll get to how to read this better. I'm not a real singer. Bear with me. I'm going to try and sing you this ancient chant. It predated Guido. It's a hymn to St. John the Baptist. I don't really know how to pronounce Latin. I'm so sorry for this performance, but here I go. Utque, oh wait, time out. Utque ant laxis resonare fibris mira gestorum famuli tuorum, solve polluti, labireatum, Sancte Ioannes. All right? I'm going to sing it again, and I want you to notice something. Utqueant laxis, resonare fibris, mira gestorum, famuli tuorum, solve polluti, labireatum, Sancte Ioannes. Look at those. Ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Does it sound familiar? Ut, a deer, a female deer. Re, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself. Fa, a long, long way to run. Sol, you see what's going on here. This is kind of the ancient 11th century version of that solfege song from The Sound of Music. It's the original version of someone doing this that we know of, and it's kind of weird because they use ut instead of do. And in fact, in France and in some other French-speaking countries, and maybe elsewhere, I'm not sure, they still say ut instead of do. I don't know why ut turned to do. I actually tried to research that and I couldn't come up with anything. But for some reason, ut turned to do eventually. But so what we have here is a scale where each note, as it ascends, gets its own syllable. And we end up with this scale that's like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do to do is an octave. We talked about octaves and octave equivalents. So do, re, mi. Sounds the same but different because it's different in pitch but the same in pitch class. When we name these by scale degrees, we use the little hats, like I said. And some people are die-hard users of scale degree numbers. One reason I don't like singing in scale degrees is that some of the scale degrees, like 6, it's not the best sounding word to sing. And then 7 is 2 syllables, so when you're singing with numbers, it's always awkward you have to either like leave out the second syllable and just call it sev, and then that makes you feel like stupid. It's kind of weird. So I have lots of arguments why I think solfege is better. I just do. Solfege just seems better to me. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So we use solfege. I have just enough time to talk about my favorite subject, the stupidness of our language ideas about music. So we call this an octave, so you think it must be 8 steps away, right? Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. An octave is 7 steps up? That makes no sense. Why isn't it called a septive? Well, it's because of that stupid thing that I'm always talking about. When this stuff got made up, no one had the idea, no one's brain worked the way that our brains work today, where we would say the distance from do to itself is obviously 0, and we would call this the first step. Like, this is like the bottom, and this is the first step. And then really, if we made up this language today, we would probably not call it an octave. We'd call it 7 steps away or something. But we don't. Get that beautiful idea out of your head. That's not how anybody does it. Not in Western music. Not at all. Instead, we call this a unison, and we're left in the weird situation of saying the distance from a note to itself is 1 instead of 0. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. So this is the origins of solfege, and solfege as it applies to our favorite song, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And that's all. I'll see you next time. Bye.